What happens after death? Science and spiritual wisdom reveal the mystery. The last heartbeat does not mean the end of life. When the body falls silent, something miraculous begins. A transformation that humanity has been trying to understand for millennia, but which only becomes comprehensible to those capable of transcending the limits of the material world. So what really happens in that moment when the last breath leaves our lips? Modern science and ancient wisdom have finally met on this question. Dr. Sam Parnia, one of the world's leading cardiologists studying death, has spent 25 years studying that mysterious period that follows clinical death. During his research, he made a stunning discovery. Death is not a moment, but a process. Consciousness does not cease immediately when the heart stops. In reality, a transitional period begins in which the soul is still present before embarking on its next journey. This transitional state, which Tibetan Buddhist sages have known for millennia, can last longer than 360 hours. According to the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the separation of the soul can take 8 days, but even up to 12 weeks, and during this time it passes through 3 different phases. The first phase is called Chi-Kai Bardo and occurs immediately after physical death. Dr. Kenneth Ring, who for 14 years directed the death research program at the University of Connecticut, documented more than 300 near-death experiences. According to his studies, in this first phase, the soul is still closely connected to its body and often doesn't even know it has died. Most people's first reaction is confusion, writes Ring. They see their own body from outside, try to speak to others, but no one hears them. This is the moment when they slowly begin to realize something has fundamentally changed. The story of a 43-year-old architect particularly clearly shows this process. The man suffered life-threatening injuries in a car accident and was declared clinically dead for more than 2 minutes. Later, he recounted his experience. "I saw myself in the wrecked car, but I felt no pain. I tried to call for help, but my voice couldn't be heard. Then I noticed I was passing through the paramedics, as if they weren't even there. That's when I understood something very special was happening to me." The second phase is perhaps the most moving part of the entire process. Dr. Jeffrey Long, who for 18 years collected testimonies of near-death experiences worldwide, examined more than 4,500 cases. According to him, in this phase appears what people call the life review, a complete retrospective of every lived moment. The life review is not simply a replay of memories, explains Long. It's a comprehensive evaluation where the person not only sees what they did, but also experiences what others felt because of their actions. Every word, every deed, every thought resonates. It's not punishment, but learning, preparation for the soul to evaluate its earthly experiences and evolve. A 61-year-old teacher who lived through a near-death experience during heart surgery described it this way: "Every moment was present simultaneously. I saw when I spoke impatiently to my child and felt their pain. I saw when I helped a stranger and felt the warmth of their gratitude. I understood that every action we take ripples through time and space. No one judged me, yet I saw with infinite clarity where I erred and where I acted rightly." Dr. Pim van Lommel, Dutch cardiologist, in his 10-year prospective study carefully examined 327 near-death experiences of survivors. Van Lommel's discovery revolutionized death research. He demonstrated that near-death experiences don't depend on the brain's oxygen supply and cannot be explained by physiological causes. "Consciousness is independent of the brain," asserts van Lommel. Near-death experiences prove that something survives the death of the body. In this second phase, after experiencing the life review, the soul gains knowledge that transcends all earthly experience. According to van Lommel's reports, people suddenly understood the workings of the universe, the true nature of love, and the deeper purpose of their spiritual development. A 47-year-old engineer expressed it this way: "It was as if I had read 1,000 books simultaneously. I understood things I had never studied, saw connections I would never have thought of before. And the most wonderful thing was that this knowledge was given to me with love, not as expectation or requirement." The third phase is when the soul meets the light. Dr. Raymond Moody revolutionized death research 47 years ago with his work Life After Life, and in this book he first described the phenomenon of the being of light. In Moody's original research, 90% of people reported encountering an intense light, or being of light that radiated pure love, wisdom, and unconditional acceptance. This light doesn't shine in a physical sense. It doesn't dazzle. It's not warm. It's not cold. Rather, it's the manifestation of pure consciousness, infinite love. A 49-year-old nurse who died due to complications during childbirth and then returned described it this way: "The light didn't shine from outside, but from within. As if the love of the entire universe had concentrated, and I stood at its center. I felt no judgment, only infinite understanding. The light knew all my worries, all my fears, and yet completely accepted me." The case of Dr. Eben Alexander, neurosurgeon, is particularly noteworthy since he himself professed to be a skeptical materialist in science. He spent 7 days in a coma due to bacterial meningitis, and according to doctors, his cerebral cortex was completely shut down during this period. Yet when he came to, he reported detailed experiences. "As a materialist, I thought consciousness was a product of the brain," writes Alexander. "But what I experienced made that belief impossible. The light I encountered didn't just shine. It was the embodiment of pure, unconditional love. It communicated with me without words, and I understood a fundamental truth. Earthly life is just a brief learning phase in the soul's infinite journey. My true home is there, in that light." Egyptian culture knew these processes millennia ago. The Amduat, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, describes in detail the soul's journey after death. According to them, the Ba, one aspect of the soul, leaves the body and begins its journey through the Duat, the underworld, which is not hell but a transitional realm where the soul is purified and undergoes transformation. The Egyptians believed the soul remained in contact with the body for 71 days. This period allows the soul to gradually adapt to its new state and release earthly attachments. They believed that if the body was properly mummified, the soul would more easily find the way back if it needed to reincarnate. The Vedic tradition possesses similar wisdom. According to them, prana, the life energy, gradually leaves the body at the moment of death. The Katha Upanishad beautifully describes, "When the soul leaves the body, all the sense organs follow it, as bees follow the queen bee." This poetic formulation actually conceals a deep spiritual truth. Consciousness is not localized in the brain or heart, but permeates the entire body, every cell, and at death leaves it all at once. If you've followed this ancient wisdom and modern research so far, please support the channel by subscribing and clicking the like button, because we'll uncover many more mysteries together about life and death, the true nature of the soul. But what happens to those souls who cannot detach from their earthly attachments? Dr. Edith Fiore, during her more than 22 years of research, documented a particular phenomenon. Certain souls get stuck on the earthly plane. These are often people who died suddenly and don't understand what happened to them, or those who have too strong an emotional connection to certain places, objects, or people. Stuck souls are not evil, emphasizes Dr. Fiore. They're simply confused, lost. They're like a child who got lost in a shopping mall. They need help to continue their journey toward the light. Fiore documented more than 1,500 such cases, where various methods successfully helped these souls home to the appropriate spiritual plane. A particularly moving case was that of a 33-year-old police officer who died on duty. His wife and children for years felt his presence in the house. Doors opened and closed. The officer's favorite music played on the radio when no one was in the room. During Fiore's work, it became clear that the officer's soul couldn't let go of his family because he felt he still had to protect them. He could only move on when he understood. His love would protect them even when he was in the world of light. Dr. Stanislav Grof, who for 50 years studied altered states of consciousness and the death process, says the soul's separation is not a uniform or linear process. Different layers of consciousness leave the body at different times, explains Grof. The ego, personal identity, is generally the first to dissolve. That's when the person no longer identifies with their name, profession, or roles. Then follows the deeper personal history, the layer of memories. And finally, we arrive at pure awareness, which always was and always will be. One of the most moving aspects of the dying process is what researchers call deathbed visions. Dr. Carlos Osis and Erlendur Haraldsson, in their monumental research, examined 10,000 cases in 170 countries. Their results were stunning. 70% of the dying see deceased family members, friends, or spiritual guides who come for them. A hospice nurse who worked with the dying for 30 years recounted her experiences this way. So many times I've seen patients suddenly light up and talk with someone we can't see. They say, "Mom, is that you? I haven't seen you in so long." Or, "Grandpa, how young you are." Their facial expression is pure joy and relief. After that, they usually depart peacefully within a few hours, or at most a day or two. They no longer struggle. They're not afraid. As if they know someone is waiting for them and will accompany them home. Dr. Peter Fenwick, British neuropsychiatrist, in his 35 years of research demonstrated that these visions are not hallucinations or brain abnormalities caused by oxygen deficiency. The figures seen by the dying consistently show behavior one would expect from a loving relative or protector, writes Fenwick. They come to help in the transition, to reassure the dying person, and to safely escort them. They don't threaten. They don't ask for anything. They radiate only love, acceptance, and safety. Different cultures describe this phenomenon in different ways, but the fundamental elements are strikingly similar everywhere in the world. Indian dying people often see Yama, the god of death, but not as a frightening figure, rather as a just guide. Christians see angels, Jesus, or Mary. Buddhists encounter bodhisattvas. Jews see the prophet Elijah or other biblical figures. This doesn't mean these visions are purely culturally conditioned, emphasizes Osis. Rather, it shows that the soul experiences spiritual reality in the form that is most comprehensible and reassuring to it. The form changes, but the essence is the same: love, guidance, homecoming. The physical signs of the soul's separation are also well documented in modern science. Dr. Duncan McDougall, Massachusetts physician, in 1907 conducted an experiment to measure the weight of the soul. He weighed 6 dying patients on a bed placed on a precise scale immediately before and after death. The results were controversial, but McDougall measured a weight loss of 21 grams in one patient at the moment of death, which cannot be explained by the body's moisture loss or lung emptying. Although McDougall's experiment was criticized by many for methodological problems, modern researchers have found other physical signs of the soul's separation. Dr. Konstantin Korotkov, Russian physicist, developed the GDV technique, which can visualize the energy field around the human body. According to Korotkov, this energy field, which some call the aura, changes drastically at the moment of death. Our measurements show there is still energy activity around the body after death, states Korotkov. This activity gradually decreases, but remains detectable for several days. This suggests that something, which we might call the soul or energy body, doesn't leave the physical body immediately, but gradually. Conscience and moral evaluation play a central role in the after-death process. According to Dr. Pim van Lommel, during near-death experiences, souls often experience the moral consequences of all their actions. But they experience this not as external judgment, but as internal understanding. There's no bearded God standing there judging, explains van Lommel. The soul itself sees the true impact of its actions, and this is part of spiritual growth. We understand where we erred, but we experience it not with shame but with love and as a learning opportunity. This process helps us be wiser in our next incarnation. The question of fulfilling life's purpose is also determining. Dr. Michael Newton, who conducted 4,000 regression sessions, claims that certain souls leave their bodies with more difficulty if they feel they haven't completed their earthly mission. There are souls who return to the body because their time hasn't yet come, writes Newton. It's not always a conscious decision, but a deep spiritual instinct that urges them to complete their life purpose. I've seen people who were already clinically dead but came back because they felt there's still something unfinished. The story of a 56-year-old father is particularly moving. He died clinically during a heart attack and had no pulse for 6 minutes. Later, he recounted that he was already in the world of light, had experienced the life review, met his deceased parents. But then he suddenly remembered his 13-year-old daughter, who was fighting a serious illness. I felt that if I left now, my daughter wouldn't survive. She needs me. And in that moment, I decided, I'm going back. The light pulsed consentingly, as if saying, "Go, your time hasn't yet come." The influence of spiritual practices on preparation for death and the ease of transition is indisputable. According to Dr. Herbert Benson's decades of research, Harvard medical professor, those who meditate regularly or perform other spiritual practices are significantly less afraid of death, and when their time comes, they experience a more peaceful transition. Meditation teaches a person to let go, explains Benson, and death is ultimately about letting go. Those who have practiced letting go in meditation, their whole life no longer cling convulsively to the body, identity, possessions. For them, death is a natural transition, not a tragedy. The Dalai Lama, who has studied the process of death and rebirth for decades, says, "If you practice conscious presence your whole life, you won't get lost at the moment of death either. The nature of the soul is clear and luminous, and whoever knows this nature departs in peace. Death is not an enemy, but a teacher. Every breath prepares us for that moment when we breathe our last." The influence of music and art on the dying process is also documented and wonderful. Dr. Therese Schroeder-Schecker, thanatologist, has used music for more than 35 years to help the dying. She founded the Chalice of Repose project, during which trained musicians play harp and sing beside the dying. Music is a bridge between the material and spiritual world, states Schroeder-Schecker. It helps the soul dissolve from physical attachments and tune into higher frequencies. Countless times I've seen a dying person's pain cease, breathing slow and deepen, face become peaceful when they heard the right music, as if the music reminded them where they came from and where they're going. The role of dreams during dying is also a noteworthy phenomenon. Dr. Patricia Bulkley, dream researcher, for more than 25 years, collected the dreams of the dying. According to her research, as someone approaches death, their dreams become increasingly spiritual and symbolic. Dreams form a natural bridge between the conscious and unconscious, between the material and spiritual, explains Bulkley. The dreams of the dying often contain travel symbols, trains, planes, ships, bridges. They meet their deceased loved ones in dreams, much earlier than in the waking state. These dreams often provide spiritual guidance, prepare the soul for transition. A 73-year-old woman fighting cancer, weeks before her death, every night dreamed the same thing. She walked in a beautiful garden where her deceased husband waited on a bench. Every night, she got a little closer to him. The last night she finally reached him. The husband stood up, embraced her, and together they headed toward a luminous door. The next morning, the woman died smiling, in peace. The influence of collective prayers and love on the dying is indisputable. Dr. Larry Dossey, during his decades of research, documented numerous cases where the prayers of family, friends, and community positively influenced the dying person's experiences and even their physical state. The energy of love and prayer crosses every physical boundary, writes Dossey. It doesn't matter whether the dying person is conscious or lying in a coma. The loving thoughts, the vibrations of prayers reach them, calm them, and help in the transition. I've seen comatose patients who apparently didn't react to anything, but when family members started praying beside them, their pulse stabilized, facial muscles relaxed. During the dying process often occurs what is called terminal lucidity. This is the phenomenon when a dying person who had been lying unconscious or confused for a long time suddenly regains clear consciousness a few hours or days before their death. Dr. Michael Nahm, German biologist, collected more than 1,000 such cases. This phenomenon cannot be explained physiologically, states Nahm. Alzheimer's patients who for years didn't recognize family members suddenly communicate completely clearly, remember everything. Brain-injured people who didn't speak begin to tell the stories of their lives. This suggests that consciousness is not in the brain, and as death approaches, the soul is temporarily able to fully manifest, independent of the brain's state. But let's return to the question that concerns us all. What happens at the moment of the soul's return? According to Dr. Kenneth Ring, those who experienced a near-death experience and returned often report that they had to choose, stay in the world of light or return to their body. This choice always depends on the soul's free will, explains Ring. No one is forced back into the body, and no one is held back from continuing. The final decision is always the soul's, though this decision is often influenced by loving duties toward others, unfinished earthly tasks, or simply that the soul feels, I haven't finished everything yet. A 38-year-old mother who almost died during childbirth recounted it this way. In the world of light, I felt a peace I had never felt on earth. I didn't want to come back. But then I saw my 2 little girls crying standing by my bed, and my heart filled with love. I knew I had to raise them, and I chose. It wasn't an external force that compelled me, but my own love that pulled me back. Quantum physics has opened a new perspective in understanding death and consciousness. Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose, Nobel Prize-winning physicist, developed the theory of quantum consciousness. According to them, consciousness is not a product of nerve cells' electrical activity, but functions at the quantum level in the brain's microtubules. If this theory is correct, then the soul can indeed survive the body's death, states Hameroff. The quantum information that constitutes our consciousness cannot be destroyed according to the laws of physics, only transformed. When we die, this quantum information returns to the universe's quantum field, and perhaps later can reorganize in a new biological system. This discovery is in harmony with ancient teachings on reincarnation. According to Hindu and Buddhist tradition, the soul reincarnates again and again to evolve further and learn earthly lessons. Dr. Ian Stevenson, psychiatrist, for 50 years studied more than 3,000 reincarnation cases, primarily among children who remembered their previous lives in detail. In many cases, we found verifiable evidence, writes Stevenson. Children who knew such details about their previous life that would have been impossible to know otherwise. This suggests that consciousness indeed survives the physical body's death and is capable of continuing its development in a new body. The concept of collective soul is also an important aspect that only few understand. According to Dr. Larry Dossey's research, in certain cases, souls don't leave their bodies individually, but in groups and pass to the spiritual plane. This can be observed especially during tragedies when family members or people with a common fate die together. We've seen cases where, for example, a family died together in a car accident, explains Dossey. Survivors' reports say they felt their loved ones' souls went away together, supporting each other in the transition. The soul's connections don't cease with death. Indeed, they often become even stronger. Emotional processing is a critical part of the dying process. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identified 5 stages in the dying process: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But what happens at the soul level in these stages? The soul prepares for separation, explains Dr. Kubler-Ross, based on her decades of hospice experience. Every emotional stage helps the soul let go of its earthly attachments. Denial is a defense mechanism that gives time for processing. Anger is the ego's last attempt to maintain control. Bargaining is the period when the soul tries to find balance between staying and going. Depression is actually grief, saying goodbye to everything we know. And finally, acceptance. The soul peacefully tunes into the natural process. Family relationships deeply influence the soul's separation process and timing. According to Dr. Maggie Callanan, hospice nurse and author with 25 years of experience, the dying often wait for certain family members or events before letting go. Countless times I've seen mothers who fought death for weeks, even months, until their absent child came home, writes Callanan. And I've seen fathers who waited for a grandchild's birth, though according to doctors they should have died days earlier. The soul lovingly takes into account others' needs, even when it's already preparing for transition. This is the power of love. It bridges the boundary between death and life. But what do we know about the world where souls arrive? The reports are strikingly similar from different cultures and eras. Since Dr. Raymond Moody's original research, more than 10,000 near-death experiences have been documented worldwide and common elements emerge. The world of light is not a single place, but a collection of different levels, resonance frequencies. Dr. Michael Newton, through hypnotherapeutic regression, studied what people experience between two earthly lives. Based on 4,000 cases, he created a detailed map of the spiritual world. Souls first arrive in a transition zone where they meet their spiritual guides, writes Newton. Then occurs the life evaluation, which is not punishment, but learning. The soul sees what it learned from life, where it still needs to evolve. Then it settles beside a group where there are souls of similar development level. Here it rests, learns, plans, and when it's ready, it decides whether to reincarnate. In Newton's reports, the recurring element is the concept of soul family. According to him, certain souls incarnate together from life to life in different roles. Who is now your mother, perhaps in a previous life was your child? Who is now your husband, perhaps in a previous life was your sibling or best friend? We meet again with the same souls because we have common learning tasks. If you felt this resonates with you, if you feel a connection to these ancient truths, then share this video with others who are also seeking the answer to life's greatest question. Write a comment about your own experience or opinion. What do you think awaits us after the Great Transition? Understanding life after death is not just a matter of intellectual curiosity, but has practical significance for our lives. Those who went through a near-death experience consistently report that their experience completely changed their life, value system, priorities. In Ring's research, 95% of survivors said they appreciated life more after the experience. 87% cared less about material goods. 79% said helping others became more important to them, and 98% stated they no longer feared death. When you understand that death is not annihilation, but homecoming, you live completely differently, says a 43-year-old businessman who returned after a heart attack. I no longer worry about things that used to consume me. I'm not afraid of time. I know my true self is eternal, and that every earthly experience is learning. So now I live every moment consciously because I know what matters is how I love, how I give, how I evolve. The meeting of modern death research with ancient spiritual wisdom clearly shows death is not an endpoint, but a transition. The moment when we take our last breath is actually the moment of birth into another dimension. The body that carried us for decades was just a costume on this great stage. When the curtain falls, the actor removes the costume and goes home. Based on Dr. Pim van Lommel's research, today we know consciousness is not a product that the brain creates, but the brain is merely a receiver that picks up consciousness's signals. When the brain stops, consciousness doesn't cease to exist. It just can no longer use this specific tool. As if a radio broke. The program doesn't cease, we just can't listen to it anymore on that device. The soul's journey after death therefore continues. According to Tibetan sages, there are three main directions. Souls who recognize the true nature of light and unite with it achieve the highest liberation. Those who don't recognize it, but have accumulated positive karma, go to higher spheres where they can learn and evolve. And those who have strong negative attachments and unfinished business quickly reincarnate to continue their learning process. But regardless of which path the soul takes, one fundamental truth is always the same. Love is the greatest force in the universe. All research, all spiritual tradition arrives at the same conclusion. What really matters is the love we gave and received. Everything else, money, fame, power, possessions, stays here when we leave. Only love goes with us, because love is the soul's true nature. Dr. Eben Alexander, neurosurgeon, who experienced his own near-death experience, says, "I learned that the universe is fundamentally built from love. It's not an indifferent, cold, mechanistic system, but a living, conscious, loving presence. Every soul is part of this infinite love, and every earthly life is an opportunity to express, live, share this love." The ancient Vedic texts call this concept Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. This is the soul's true nature. We are not limited, transient human beings trying to achieve spiritual experiences. Exactly the opposite. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. The Bhagavad Gita beautifully expresses this. As a person casts off worn-out garments and puts on new ones, so too the soul abandons the aged body and moves into a new one. The soul is eternal, unchanging, remains the same through all transformations. This understanding doesn't diminish life's value, but on the contrary, it increases it. If we know that every moment is part of an enormous spiritual journey, that every relationship, every experience is a learning opportunity, we live differently, more consciously, more lovingly, more wisely. Dr. Raymond Moody, who has studied near-death experiences for 47 years, says, "The greatest gift death research has given me is that I learned to live." When you know that death is not fate but a passage, then all fear dissipates. Then it's no longer a question of how much time you have left, but what you do with the time that is now yours. According to the Tibetan Book of the Dead's teaching, the entire earthly life is actually preparation for death. Not in a morbid sense, but in the sense that every day we practice letting go, presence, love. Every meditation, every prayer, every conscious breath prepares us for that great transition that awaits us all. The Dalai Lama regularly practices death meditation, not because he is depressed or desires death, but because he knows whoever faces the reality of death can truly live. If every day you die and are reborn in your consciousness, then the final death will no longer be surprising or frightening. It will be a natural transition that you'll experience with peace and awareness. What should we therefore know about the world that follows death? Based on millennia of wisdom and modern research, a few fundamental truths emerge. First, consciousness survives the body's death. This is no longer a matter of faith, but a scientifically documented fact. Tens of thousands of near-death experience reports, reincarnation memories in children, a wide spectrum of spiritual experiences all point to this. The soul is real, eternal, imperishable. Second, death is a process, not a moment. There is time for adjustment, life evaluation, farewell. No one is violently snatched into an unknown world. The soul gradually leaves the body and receives help from deceased loved ones, spiritual guides. Third, there is no punishment, only learning. There's no bearded God standing there with a judgment seat. The soul itself evaluates its deeds, but in an environment of love and understanding. The goal is not condemnation, but evolution. Every mistake is a learning opportunity. Fourth, love is the greatest force. What carries us into the after-death world is love. What we leave behind here is our love living in others' memories. What we take with us is the capacity to love that we developed. Fifth, we have a choice. The soul is not a passive sufferer of death, but an active participant. We can decide when to let go of the body, what happens to us afterward, whether to reincarnate. Free will doesn't end with the body's death. Sixth, we meet our loved ones. Those who went before us are waiting for us. Family bonds, friendships don't break with death. We reunite with those we love and continue our spiritual journey together. Seventh, there is purpose and meaning. We're not here by accident. This life is not purposeless. Every soul has its specific mission, learning task. And after death, we see the whole picture. We understand why we experience certain experiences, what the lesson was. Eighth, everything is connected. After death, it becomes clear that all souls are connected. Every action ripples. Every thought has energetic impact. We are not isolated, but parts of an infinite consciousness network. And finally, ninth, homecoming is joy. Though it's natural to fear the unknown, those who went through near-death experiences unanimously say, the transition is wonderful. Entering the world of light is like when after a long journey we come home. Finally, we are home. Dr. Eben Alexander thus describes his experience. When I reached the world of light, one thing was completely clear. This is my true home. Earth is beautiful. Life is a wonderful gift, but only a temporary learning place. My true home is there, in that infinite ocean of love from which every soul originates and to which we all return. This understanding doesn't obscure earthly life's value, but on the contrary, sanctifies it. Every moment is precious because it's part of a larger journey. Every relationship is sacred because it helps our spiritual growth. Every difficulty is a blessing because it teaches and strengthens. And when one day that moment arrives, when our body can no longer continue, when the last breath leaves our lips, then we will know. This is not an end, but a beginning. Not darkness awaits us, but light. We don't go alone, but accompanied by our loved ones. We don't enter the unknown, but return home. The secret of death is ultimately simple. There is no death. There is transition, transformation, rebirth. But the soul is eternal. You are eternal. And you will meet again every soul you ever loved. Because love is the only thing that truly exists in this universe. Everything else is just illusion, transitory form. And when that day comes, whether tomorrow or several decades from now, when that light comes for us that calls us home, let us not be afraid. Because that light is not strange. That light is us. That light is the pure love that we have always been and always will be. We only forgot it for a brief time when we assumed human form. But at the moment of death, we will remember. And then we'll realize we never really left home. We were always there. We were always home. We were just in a dream that we call life. And this dream, this beautiful, painful, instructive dream, prepared us to return home even purer, even wiser, even more filled with love from where we once departed.